I think maybe a bigger question is Master Teague. He left the game with, as Ryan Day said, some kind of a sprain, which could be ankle or knee or wrist. I don't know. He took a big tumble on his big run down the middle of the field. He kind of went ass over tea kettles on that, or whatever that saying is, and took a really bad spill and hurt something and didn't play again. But then you put Trey Sermon in the game, and he has 331 yards. My father-in-law, who played college football at Ohio University and knows a little bit about this, said had that been Master Teague, it would have been 400 yards, because Sermon, as good as he was still missing some open things and unable with some burst to take full advantage of some of the things that he got. So that'll give you the idea of what one interested observer thought, that Teague would have done much more with what Sermon was given. But Sermon had a hell of a game, though. So in a nutshell, I think Ohio State overrated Northwestern's ability to stop the run, didn't even try to run the football, it seemed, early in the game. And when the passing game really bogged down, they went back to the run, and Northwestern could not stop them, despite how great their linebackers may be, how rugged their front four seemed to be in other games. They had no answer for Ohio State's physicality, and that's going to play well for Ohio State, I think, in the playoff.
We talk Ohio State football here each and every Wednesday at 2 o'clock Eastern Time. We got Tony Gerdeman, Buckeye Scoop on the line, Steve Hillwagon, Bucknuts 247 Sports, and, of course, Kevin Noon from Rivals Buckeye Grove. We invite you to help us out. We will continue this based on individual contributions. We would love to get a sponsor. If you've got any leads in that direction beyond sending me an email to say Dick's Sporting Goods would be a great sponsor, Mark. Yeah, I don't need more emails like that. I'm pretty up on that side of it. We want some real contacts possibly, and that would be phenomenal to help establish the show here.
Have you thought about like Tesla or McDonald's?
Tesla, yeah.
You should reach out to them.
McDonald's, I've heard of them. Sure, absolutely. I'm sure I could get a just one phone call, should be able to knock it out there. Not a lot of corporate red tape to go through there. So
Shark Tank, and we can get a shark involved, and then we could get all the money.
There you go. There you go. Trey Sermon. Yeah, I had the same thought, Steve, and this coming from just a guy that watches a lot of football that played at a very, very, very low level. Watching Trey Sermon, because of obviously he's the guy that gets the credit. People are talking Trey Sermon that night. And I'm like, yeah, he ran through holes that were that could, fit a compact car through. But I saw it more as just this offensive line dominance in the run game. And considering what JK was able to do against Clemson last year, I know they're different teams to a certain extent, but maybe they just don't get so pass happy against Clemson. Maybe they really lean Tony on that run game.
I think you got to try that and see if that works, because if that works, then everything else does as well. And then you can do whatever. I don't know how I feel about the Master Teague thing. I think there would have been carries that he would have just been tackled on, because he doesn't have the elusiveness of Trey Sermon. And Trey Sermon rushed for 190 some yards after contact. So there is that. But I agree, there were holes where Master Teague would not have been caught, and Trey Sermon was. I think that's the difference between a 4.4 and a 4.65. And I don't know that it will be an issue next year, but because Ohio State's going to have a whole bunch of speed next year, including Master Teague. But yeah, there were runs that Sermon couldn't quite finish, but I will give him credit for getting to that point and getting past some of those defenders, and he did run hard. It's just the gas tank kind of ran out at the end on some of those long runs. And again, I don't know that Master Teague would have been able to make some of those. I know he wouldn't have been able to make some of those same cuts, but if he would have had 29 carries with that offensive line, I think anybody is going to – it seems crazy to say, but maybe anybody would have rushed for 300 yards that day and set an Ohio State record with how those guys just dominated and opened up just entire – from hash to hash.
I was going to say with Teague, I think Teague's acceleration would have finished off some of those runs, but I think Sermon's balance is a little bit better. And there were some times where I think Teague probably would have not been able to regain his balance. And I'm really going to that last Sermon run to set up where they weren't able to punch it in at the end of the game. And there were 2 or 3 times where a mere mortal would have gone to the ground. I would have torn both my ACLs, but Sermon was able to keep going. So I think it's, it's 6 of one, half a dozen of another. But I think that the 4 of us could have at least rushed for 80 yards in that game. The 4 of us.
He
20 each.
He had 7 carries for 60 yards in the first half, and I just counted it up. 22 carries for 271, an average of 12.3 yards per carry in the second half. 22 carries for 271 yards. I don't think I've ever heard of anybody have that many yards in a half. That's pretty impressive, I have to say. That was when they needed him the most, he brought it. And they really needed every one of those yards to put that game away. Northwestern made them earn everything they got. And, Northwestern had they in the second half, they turned it over 3 times. 2 interceptions and a fumble by Peyton Ramsey. They're in position to win this game. I mean, it was not Ohio State dominating this game by any stretch of the imagination. And, every time they went 7 possessions trailing until they finally regained the lead late in the third quarter. They kept shooting themselves in the foot time after time after time, and just could not put the ball in the end zone until finally they were able to regain the lead late in the third quarter. So, in everybody's life, there needs to be some adversity, and I think some great lessons were learned, I think, from that game. Better to learn those lessons in victory than in defeat. I mean, had they lost the game, we'd probably be going back out to the Fiesta Bowl for the 19th time. But instead, it's going to be the playoffs, so that's good.
Got 150 on the line. Appreciate everyone jumping on here. We've asked for questions, Steve and I, so we will honor those. Somebody was chiming in with something. Tony, you got something?
Well, I just think they only scored 22 points on 399 yards rushing, which still astonishes me that the game was close when the running game was not. And that gets back, I guess, to coaching and not just rolling with that. And that's why when I said earlier, like, why not try to do that against Clemson? Because if that works, then that also runs the clock and keeps your defense off the field, keeps Trevor Lawrence over on the sideline where he can do no good, and keeps him from running all over the defense like he did a year ago.
Yeah, at some point in the third quarter, I sent out a tweet. Ohio State, 6 points, no touchdowns. Sermon was at 10 rushes for $150, and Teague was at like 2 for 23. So they had a combined 12 for 173. How is this possible?
Terrible red zoning.
Yeah.
Terrible red zoning.